When you play short and tall vehicles, most likely you have missed plenty of shots because of hull wobbling. Or maybe you are waiting for a complete stop so you can shoot accurately. But it takes so much time that enemy kills you while your sight is still swinging between sky and ground. Soviet tank destroyer ZiS-30 is a good example of such vehicle. It experiences extreme wobbling, but there are ways to deal or at least minimize the negative effects of this issue. First way to minimize wobbling is just releasing acceleration button. The vehicle will be stopping longer this way, but sight will be more stable during this time. It is useful if enemy already noticed you and is ready to fire, so you have no choice just to shoot right now and hope to be the first one. Despite wobbling is reduced for the duration until vehicle stops, if there are any bumps on your way, your accuracy will suffer. So it's best used on even ground, preferably road, and only when every second matters and you must shoot first or be killed. Though it only reduces wobbling, and for something like ZiS-30, reduction is not going to help. What is going to help? Second way. It is useful when you notice enemy first and he is not aware of you. You want your first shot to be accurate, otherwise it will alert him. In this case, you have few seconds that you can spend to prepare for this shot. Preparation is simple, you just stop the vehicle by pressing move backwards button. This will make your gun swing a lot more, but unlike in first case, where you just released acceleration, vehicle stops much faster, so you are ready to shoot precisely sooner. This way works only when you have time to stop, which is either when opponent is not aware of you or he is so slow that you can afford to spend some time before making your shot. For vehicles with extreme wobbling like ZiS-30, complete stop is probably the best way. Third way is researchable suspension modification, that according to description increases fire accuracy in motion. The easiest and least useful way. Your speed and surface you're on will have much bigger impact than suspension. It is nice upgrade to have, no skill required, but don't rely on it. If unresearched vehicle is difficult to shoot while moving, don't expect it to change after you buy this upgrade. It makes almost no difference for ZiS-30. You can check tank modifications guide using notification in the right corner. Fourth way comes with experience. After playing some time with your tank, you will be able to predict how your gun is responding when vehicle is stopping at different speeds. What is the amplitude of gun's movement and how much time it needs to stop completely. When stopping with ZiS-30, vehicle's gun will end up pointing higher, and then it starts slowly and predictably align with a circle. At that point, hull is not moving and just vertical gun's guidance applies. That means it's safe to shoot as soon as it reaches required height. But why ZiS-30 has to go through all this suffering? Because it can carry a gun that is able to penetrate almost everything. Its shell can go through over 140 mm of steel from up close and 119 at 1 km range. And that's at battle rating 2.3, where you hardly find a vehicle with armor over 100 mm. Even at higher battle ratings you can find similar penetrations. And of course these shells will explode once inside enemy's vehicle, because ZiS-30 uses proper Soviet shells. You will be able to choose out of 2 APHE projectiles. One shell has more explosives, another works better against angled armor. Though even if you choose more explosives, keep in mind that one successful penetration might not be enough, because weapon's caliber is only 57 mm, so sometimes you will need 1 or 2 more shots to finish your opponent. Thankfully, reload with a screw is 5 seconds. That sometimes allows you to shoot again before enemy even located where that first hit came from. They might have difficulties with that because ZiS-30 can shoot projectiles at 990 meters per second speed. That allows it to shoot precisely very distant targets. The only thing that could be an issue is that sight doesn't have good zoom. Sometimes you barely can see your target. Then it's better to aim using binoculars. Yes, you won't be able to see lines indicating how much shell drops over distance, but shell's velocity is so big that you have to make very little adjustments for gravity. And now when you are ready to write a comment about how OP and biased is this Soviet vehicle, couple of things to calm you down. First of all, wobbling. As mentioned before, vehicle cannot hit anything until it stops completely, and even then it will take a second until hull stabilizes. That makes it very vulnerable when relocating, limiting available playstyles only to camping, and even then you will be vulnerable while moving into your position. Additionally, gun has limited horizontal traverse angles and can cover about 40 degrees wide area in front, so sometimes you will be forced to rotate whole hull and that will swing your gun. Plus, even when opponent is within your gun's traversion angle, gun's horizontal guidance is only 7 degrees per second with aced crew. That often is not fast enough to aim at quick opponents, so you will have to turn whole tank. And of course, wait again until vehicle stabilizes. So there are plenty of situations when wobbling will be an issue even if you stay camping in one place. Defensive characteristics are best represented by comrades on vehicle's back who are protecting tank with their own bodies. Any weapon in a game can knock out your gunner, and that person is quite important if you want to destroy someone. At least you have driver and machine gunner sitting inside 10mm thick, hull breakable hull, so you won't be one-shotted if other two will be killed by artillery shell explosion 50 meters away. Even gun's depression is surprisingly bad. Usually vehicle's roof limits how high gun's breech can be lifted when gun is pointing downwards. ZiS-30 has no roof above gun's breech, but vehicle apparently must have bad depression angles to be placed in Soviet tank tree, -4 degrees. That makes it impossible to play hull down and hide its vulnerable everything. So not being hit at all is the best way to stay alive. Pretend to be bush. But since tank silhouette is quite tall, not every bush will hide it, so look for other ways to benefit from vehicle's narrow and short dimensions. For example, you can pass through narrow gaps to hide where other tanks can't, and short vehicle is easier to maneuver when space is limited. Additionally, small silhouette can be hidden better using bush as camouflage. ZiS-30 has maximum speed of 42 km/h. It is reachable but takes quite a lot of time accelerating. In comparison with other tanks at small battle ratings, such speed is considered below average. In arcade, gun's penetration means a lot. Because of that, vehicle has battle rating of 2.7, so expect to meet a little bit stronger opponents more often. But still, with penetration like yours, you shouldn't experience any problems. Tank performs almost the same even when over-tiered and can be used even in setups with tanks of higher tier. The biggest problem is that now your position will always be known, so you cannot hide in bushes and must take unpenetratable cover, and peek out only to shoot. That can be difficult because after you peek out, you still have to wait for your hull wobbling to stop to make that shot, and considering your armor, that time in the open is very dangerous. And of course, even when you stand behind rocks, you cannot feel safe because enemies know exactly where to drop their artillery strikes. Since in arcade tanks usually shoot over long distances, they miss more often. For ZiS-30 that can take a maximum of 20 shells, that can be an issue when sniping across the map. Nevertheless, despite all that, vehicle felt more effective in arcade because APHE shells with very high penetration compensates all the downsides easily. Overall, ZiS-30 feels hard to handle up until that moment when it comes to shooting. It is impossible to peek out of the cover when enemies already aim at your location, and at the same time it is impossible for enemies to peek out when your gun is pointing at their location. So good positioning is the most important thing when playing ZiS-30. I will rate the vehicle 5 swinging guns out of 10. Very big advantage in penetration, but it becomes totally useless as soon as you have to move your hull for any reason. In close encounters, when every second matters, you simply don't have enough time to stabilize your gun, and considering how many fast tanks there are at small battle ratings, they often end up close and catch you unprepared.